by WWE Hall of Famer Mick Foley, who's smiling for the camera page back there.
Are we filming this?
I think so. Is that what she's doing?
Not anymore. Go ahead and film it.
And Steve, our afternoon guy, jumped in here as well, and I know Steve's a big fan of yours, Mick. So I'm going to let him start off with the first question, if you would like, just because I know he's a big
Steve's
fan.
the afternoon guy.
Yes, he's our afternoon guy.
I came in early just for you. Very excited.
That's a little scary. I'd like you to leave. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
I get the first question. I guess one of the big things, I mean, we talk about comedy and like, really throughout everything you've done, your books, whether it be wrestling. Commissioner Foley, I think, was the funniest thing to ever happen to wrestling. And now doing like stand-up. Where do you get the most, what's the one thing that gives you the most inspiration for like comedy, for funny stories, for funny jokes?
You know what it is? It just goes back to the reason I got into wrestling, to get reactions. You know, even when I was in high school, I was the reaction guy, and you know, now it seems kind of diluted with all the reality TV. But if you were the guy in 1982 who could eat gross things, like it made you somebody. It didn't get you any dates.
Class clown? Would you say you're the class clown? Would you put it that way?
You know what? I mean, yeah, maybe in a sense. You know, if I was the gross class clown, and
the kid eating worms.
Yeah, the worms. Yeah, the worms thing, which now we've seen on reality TV, but at the time that was really groundbreaking, and it was a matter of just eating one worm. These kids were throwing them at me during football practice. I thought, well, how do you take a negative and turn it into a positive? You know, you control the power. This is a story I'm going to give those kids in high school. It's to you, kids. Someone throws a worm at you at football practice, you know what you do? You suck it down! As Mankind might say. And then
you going to do it in the Mankind voice when you talk to them today?
No, but I did. That was the story in 1997 when Jim Ross interviewed me. And I was saying they were throwing worms at me, little wriggly worms. So I sucked it down. And then I talked about the story. It became exaggerated. Not that Mickey Foley had eaten one worm because kids were taunting him, but that I ate a plate full of worms before every game. And I said, "You think I got a lot of dates after that? You think there were a lot of girls who wanted to kiss a boy who had worms on his breath?" And this is all impromptu, like no scripting whatsoever. And I yelled out, "I was a good kisser! I never got a chance. What was I going to do? Practice on a pillow?" And after that interview, like, fans just started cheering for me. It was like really, it's kind of surreal because I've never heard of it before or since. Like one of these turns, as we call them, wrestling. You know, you being bad to good, just based on 5 interviews. You know, I never did anything nice for anyone. People just started finding empathy, you know, and
in that Mankind character.
In the character, and it was really an amazing turnabout.
Now he was a bit of an odd character, obviously. He
Mankind?
was, he's a little strange.
A little bit.
And I asked you this on Twitter probably about a year ago, and you actually responded.
I did,
to
really?
Yeah, you responded back because I asked you how hard was it because you're such a nice guy. You're nothing like Mankind. I asked how did you get into that role every day.
What was my answer at the time?
Basically, that it took you. You would sit there for like an hour or so, and you would really have to focus on getting into that character. Because
you know, for a while, I tried to find the extensions of myself, you know, and that was a dark character. So I had to spend a lot of time in preparation, you know. Like now, apparently, there is a way to get guys under the ring through creating like an active diversion.
Oh wow!
And then they sneak them under the ring, and probably that means was available to WWE when I joined, but they didn't tell me about it. So I'd have to go into the ring at like 5 p.m.
Stay there all night.
Yeah, and I'd been there like 5 hours, you know, getting in the zone. So I spent 4 of my first 5 days in WWE under the ring, and had no idea that was Mr. McMahon's idea of humor.
Now, your characters, too, are so different, right? I mean, going from Mankind, or Cactus Jack, I guess, into Mankind, into Dude Love, and then into being yourself. What character did you like playing the most? Maybe it was because you had to really try to get into character for Mankind. Maybe it was just because it was fun being Dude Love. What?
Well, the easiest was the Commissioner, you know.
Yes,
my
favorite.
You look for what's missing in a show, and you try to provide that. And to me, they were short on dorky humor, you know. And I'd already been that guy who'd done all the physical
joke stuff too.
I'm going with the Commissioner.
Well, we just you had done a bit of the joke stuff anyway, so it led into the commissioner, right, with the rock and sock. And
Oh yeah.
I
Really like. Well, when people say, "Well, how'd you get into comedy?" Believe it or not, the biggest step for me, the biggest moment was actually that Hell in a Cell match, because it was after the Hell in a Cell where I was at home thinking, I have to find a way to connect to people that doesn't involve emergency room visits.
Right.
And it was at that time, I started lightening up the character and finding that I could get satisfaction out of making people laugh, in addition to making them wince. And then that's when Mankind took a turn for the lighter. He really started injecting. I started injecting a lot of humor into the character, and I found that I liked that.
Was that your doing, or did you have to convince Vince a little bit?
No, I just kind of went with it,
and they never said stop.
And then the secret in wrestling is to do something on your own and then convince someone else it was their idea.
Right.
It's probably the secret of life. That's what I'll tell the kids in high school. Yeah. Come up with an idea and convince someone else it's their own, so they'll go with it. And I love doing it. And then the success of the book in '99, Have a Nice Day, allowed me to speak at colleges. All of a sudden I was a credible college speaker, and then I gravitated towards the funny stories. Like, I felt like I had to have a message because they were at universities, but I would gravitate towards whether it was, Al Snow. Here's a little Canadian story. Al Snow being lifted high into the mid-November hockey arena air after Bob Holly had, at my suggestion, pulled one part of his singlet to the other part of his body. And, you imagine you're high in that mid-November, I think it was late November hockey arena air.
A little chilly up there?
A little chilly, yeah, it was pretty obvious.
So those are the kind of stories, I'm guessing, that you can see in your book, which you wrote way back in '99, and you wrote that yourself. You fired your ghostwriter because you thought you could do better, and
I did.
You did do better, I think. #1 New York Times bestseller. You can't do much better than that. So how does that translate, your material from your book, translate into your stage show? Is it straight story, like you basically tell it word for word, or how does it work?
You know what, I was a little worried going back a couple of years ago, because I had found that, I went to Just for Laughs in Montreal, and I had a pretty good show going, but it was while at Just for Laughs where I realized, wow, people want to hear material outside of wrestling. There's like 200 better places to go in this hotel room. These are some of the funniest people in the world. And all of a sudden, it really dawned on me that I have the wrestling stories. Like, no matter how good Louis C.K. is, and he's sensational, he doesn't have a story where he finishes a match with his tooth in his nose.
No.
And I've got the video to prove this stuff.
It, yeah.
Not many people have a story that ends like
So you
that.
might as well go with your strengths. But I thought, well, I'm going to run out of things to talk about, especially if I try to tell stories from my book. And then one day I was traveling to Los Angeles, and I'd only told the infamous cookie story once, and I knew DDP was going to be in the audience, and I wanted to tell the cookie story. And instead of trying to read it and render it word for word, I rewrote it for the stage. And then once I saw that come together and got the laughs where I thought they would be, self-edited while I was going because I realized it was too long. It was like the difference between going to see a band and they do a note-for-note rendition of their greatest hits, and seeing a band that loves being out there. I remember seeing Willie Nelson, and within 5 minutes I was like, wow, these guys love being out there. It wasn't that, let's do it, let's pay the bills.
Yeah,
I mean, they
get
loved
the paycheck and off the stage.
Yeah, and so I found ways in some cases to take stories that, from the books, and in other cases, I up until recently, I've been telling stories about my Hall of Fame induction, and I probably will touch on this tomorrow night in Timmins, and how I had never known about the words that were exchanged between The Undertaker and Terry Funk with an N. I don't know if you have an FCC here, but there's an N in that name. And how once I heard the words that were exchanged while I was not conscious, it changed my entire perspective of that match. And so now I can tell a story about that infamous cell match without feeling like I'm going through the motions. And I think that's what most people get from the show, is that when I'm done, first of all, they're like, wow, it was a lot better than I thought it was going to be.
Right.
So I do have the benefit of just kind of hurtling over the low bar of expectations. But people also say that it's, that I love it, I really do. I say, you were talking to me about the Santa Claus documentary.
Yeah.
And one of the things I said was like, well, no one can tell me that having that one child sitting on my knee looking at me and seeing the magic of Christmas wasn't as special as having 20,000 people chanting my name at Madison Square Garden. And by the same token, like, I'll take a few hundred people in a room really into what I'm doing. You know, that's just as good to me as having 20,000, you know, anywhere chanting my name.
That Santa Claus movie you mentioned called I Am Santa Claus, it's coming out this year.
Yeah, we're going to debut it at one of the conventions in June, and we have a meeting with Morgan Spurlock, who has heard good things about the movie. And Morgan Spurlock's one of the top documentarians in the world, and I think he's going to be really impressed. You know, I came on as a subject, and then I later became a producer. And a lot of times the guys are producers in name only, and I actually drive, like after Raw in Brooklyn, I drove to Philadelphia, which is about 3 hours, and we spent 9 hours working on the movie, and then I drove back. And so I'm really hands-on. You know, when I get into something, I
get into it.
I dive into the deep end. Yeah, I don't touch my toe in the shallow end.
Joined here in the studio with WWE Hall of Famer, multiple-time #1 New York Times bestseller, and one-man show guy, because I know you don't want to be called a comedian or a stand-up guy. It's a one-man show, more or less.
Yeah, that takes
Mick
all
Foley
the pressure
here.
off having to make people laugh.
Yeah.
No one laughs. It's a one-man show, right?
Yeah, now, is there anything you have to avoid doing? We were talking off the air a little bit about when your book came out, stories you couldn't put in your book. There were some legal things. Can you tell those on stage, or are there still some issues there?
Well, you know, there's. I mean, maybe I'll break this out for Timmins, but there was 300 legal questions. Like, it looked to me at first like, how in the world am I going to have a book if there's 300 legal questions?
Everything's got a problem.
And one of them was the idea that I was slandering another guy in the locker room by pointing out that he had huge genitalia. And I was like, I don't know if you know this, but
It's not a
the
bad
type of thing
thing,
that
no.
guys sue each other over. So apparently, not only was I not sued, but Too Cold Scorpio has that page framed.
As with most guys, I would think would probably do that.
Slanderous, you know, like
All
I was slandering Kate Parker by claiming that she appeared in the movie Taboo, and I was like, she was an adult film actress, you know, best known for her role as the incestuous mother in Taboo. Like, that's not really slanderous.
It's
so
not slander when it's factual information, right?
Yeah. So I had to go over those things with, and then I gave Kay a call, and she was okay with it.
Right on. Now, you're tomorrow night at the Charles Forney Auditorium, Ontario High School, 8 o'clock showtime, and the meet and greet that you're doing is before the show, right?
I think that's for VIPs, right?
VIPs, yes.
Yeah, I know VIP is a fancy word for people who paid extra money.
To meet you.
We'll do a meet and greet afterwards
As well. Right.
And I think and the way I do it is people can bring their own item, take their own photo. We do have you know, the 8x10s for sale and T-shirts, but there's no pressure on anybody to buy anything.
Right.
But I think it's.
And that's the thing. Sometimes you meet people and stuff like
Yeah.
that, and they're like, "Oh no pictures unless you pay whatever."
Yeah, no,
$10
that's
or
not the
something,
way I
right?
work. But I will guess that I'll look happier in the photos, you know, taken with
Right on.
those who've made the decision. You know,
VIP means smiles, the other
Yeah.
ones you get.
Yeah, smile more before the
You're
show.
looking really, really sad.
Yeah, sad and tired, and
Come up with your own item.
We're not friends in this
Yeah.
picture.
No.
And then I'll, you know, I may actually write Al Snow's name, render your memorabilia
Well, then the books,
useless.
yeah, I was going to say
That's
the book's
funny.
worthless.
That's funny. There's a story. Ian McClellan actually used to sign the actor that played Dumbledore in Harry Potter. Sir Ian McClellan used to sign his name whenever he would get recognized as the other guy, and they would say hey, Dumbledore. He would sign the other guy's name instead.
Who's the other guy?
I can't think of his actor's name. The guy from Harry Potter, who plays Dumbledore. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure.
I heard a great. This came from Richard Keel, the guy who played Jaws and James Bond films.
Right.
Richard, you remember he had that great look, and he stopped for directions in California, and the guy thought he was Lurch. And he said, no, I'm not Lurch. And he goes, Ted, no, you are.
I think I would know who I
It's
am.
a different
yeah.
guy. And the guy kept insisting, and he goes, okay, here you go. He signed the thing, Ted Cassidy, Lurch. Now give me the directions.
That's funny. Well, we look forward to seeing you there. I think there's still a few tickets left available. You can get them over at the Book Bin. Are they going to be for sale at the door as well,
Yes.
Rick, if people don't get there today?
Yes.
Yes? Oh, there. They will be for sale at the door. Charles Forney Auditorium tomorrow night, 8 o'clock. If you do have a VIP, it's 6. 6 o'clock.
Wait, we didn't get any questions from.
Well, he asked the first question. Do you
First
have anything else
you
there?
want to follow up? Can bring us home?
Yeah,
Well,
one more.
I guess
you can
to-
end it. Start it, and you can end it.
I can start and end it. That's what I like. I guess to end it, what's the one thing, when people leave your show on Saturday, what's the one thing you really want them, if they're saying this as they're leaving, what's going to make you happy that they're saying as they leave?
You know, here's this. I'm not excusing the lack of laughs in my show, but I compare everything to wrestling, and I've seen matches, you know, where people do all kinds of unbelievable things. They get lots of oohs and ahs, and at the end of the night, people don't really remember any of it, you know. And so wrestling for me was always about making an impact, so that people remembered that match when it was done. And it's the same way with me. Like, I'll take you know, I like take people on a little journey, so they feel like they've experienced you know, a gamut of emotions. But in the end, the most important thing to me is they leave with a big smile on their face. This was something I actually learned from President Bill Clinton when I waited online to meet him at a book signing. And I was towards the back of the line, and I saw that everyone was leaving with a huge smile. And when I would ask people how was it, not one person went, I waited 2 hours and saw him for 10 seconds. Everyone was like, he was amazing. Like, whether or not you like the guy's politics or not, like, he's a great people person.
Oh yeah.
And I really studied him, you know, when I was approaching, and he made every person feel like there was no place he would rather be than right there at that time talking to them. And so I try to give people that feeling, you know, especially when we do the meet and greet. And I try to be good enough. You know, it's not like I'm not saying I haven't covered up for a bad show by being specifically nice to everybody, but it's just kind of like the cherry on the cake, you know.
Right,
But I really want people smiling. And so I know we're calling it the extreme night of, it's really not extreme. It's really, given that a lot of my materials, you know, based off of graphic injuries,
Right.
I have to create a sense of warmth, you know, in the room, so people are going, oh God, it was horrible.
So they don't leave grossed out, having to run to the washroom or something.
Yeah, no, nobody's leaving.
That's how you don't want them to leave.
And
Yeah,
the most
exactly.
rewarding thing is that oftentimes there's a 10-minute, at the 10-minute mark, I look out at the women specifically who were not there as fans, who have accompanied their substantial other, like in a dramatic show of love and dedication. And when I see that they're into having fun, it's unfortunate for them because they can no longer use the Foley show for ammunition during
For leverage.
marital spat. Like, you took
So
me to
so
that
that's
Mick
really
Foley
why you
show.
do it, is to help the guys out.
Help the guys
afterwards.
out,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Although I will say the men who took their wives to see me on Valentine's Day, you know, probably have no grounds. Yeah. That's pretty much an argument ender. The moment, you know, no matter how good the guy's backup material is, you know, once the woman goes, you took me to that Mick Foley show on Valentine's Day, that's kind of checkmate. You know?
Exactly.
That's possibly the least romantic thing.
Well, I appreciate you coming in here, Mick. Hope we'll get a big turnout. We'll see you tomorrow night, Charles Fournier Auditorium, 8 o'clock show, 6 o'clock if you've got the VIP tickets, which you can get at the door or at the book
And
table.
in case you're wondering, I am not signing that book.
Sorry, Steve.
VIP, I paid VIP.
All right.
Music from Thin Lizzy on the way.